You know what? Let's just say it. Let's talk about the question that everybody's either too embarrassed to ask or too caught up in ego to admit they're worried about. How much is too much? How long is too long? What can a woman really take? And look, I know that sounds like a loaded question, and it is, but not in the way you think, because underneath that question is something bigger: fear, insecurity, comparison, pressure, performance anxiety, that voice in your head that whispers, "Am I enough?" That quiet, gnawing fear that maybe you're not measuring up. And if you're nodding, even just a little, then good, because that means you're being honest. And being honest is where confidence starts. Now here's the raw, unfiltered truth. Women are not sitting around comparing notes about size the way you think they are. They are not talking about millimeters and inches. They're not grading you like a science project. They are talking about how you make them feel emotionally, physically, energetically. If you show up insecure, unsure, trying to prove something, it doesn't matter what you're packing. That energy kills intimacy faster than anything. But if you show up grounded, present, kind, confident, aware, then it's a completely different experience. And no, this isn't about being a smooth talker or a master in bed. This is about being connected to yourself, to your partner, to the moment. Let's talk biology for a second, since so many people think this is a mechanics issue. The vaginal canal, on average, is about 3 to 4 inches when a woman is not aroused. But here's the magic. When she's turned on, it expands, it lengthens, it literally opens to accommodate more. That means it's responsive. That means her body is built to adapt not just to size, but to connection, to stimulation, to feeling emotionally safe. But none of that happens when there's tension, when there's performance pressure, when someone is chasing validation instead of giving presence. So yeah, sure, size can matter in the sense that certain positions may be more or less comfortable. Some women have preferences, just like some men do, but you know what matters more than anything: communication, listening, confidence, patience, the ability to read the room, read her body, read her energy, and adjust. You don't need a 10-inch anything. You need 10 out of 10 self-awareness. Let me tell you what actually ruins sex: overthinking. And it happens on both sides. When you're in your head, you're not in your body. When you're anxious, you disconnect, and women feel that. We are biologically wired to sense emotional shifts. If you're trying to prove something, if you're obsessed with being big enough, if your ego is in the driver's seat, you've already left the moment. And the moment is where the magic happens. You know what's actually sexy: a partner who asks questions, a partner who says, "Does this feel good? What do you like? Show me." A partner who isn't afraid of feedback, who doesn't take things personally, who stays curious. That's a rare kind of confidence, and it's the kind that makes someone unforgettable, because listen, great sex isn't about how long or how big, it's about how present you are. It's not about penetration. It's about connection, intimacy, safety, playfulness, emotional depth, trust. Those are the things that open a woman up literally and emotionally, and when those things are in place, everything gets better. So let's drop the measuring tape. Let's drop the ego. Let's drop the pressure to perform like some highlight reel. This isn't porn. This is real life, and in real life, what women want is not perfection. They want honesty. They want you to be present, to be grounded, to be there. That's what allows pleasure. That's what builds chemistry. That's what makes you memorable, and that's what makes her body say yes to you, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. You want to know how long a woman can take. The answer is it depends on her level of arousal, on how safe she feels, on how turned on she is, on how you two communicate. But the bigger truth, you're asking the wrong question. The real question is, can you show up with confidence, with presence, with emotional maturity? Can you stop chasing validation and start creating intimacy? Because when you do that, when you focus on connection instead of comparison, you stop worrying about what she can take, and you start offering something no one else ever has: your full, real, unapologetic self, and that's what she really wants. When it comes to intimacy, one of the most misunderstood beliefs, especially among many, is that size is the ultimate factor in a woman's satisfaction. This idea is everywhere, from cultural myths to locker room talk to adult entertainment, and it has left a lot of people second, guessing themselves. But let's cut through the noise and get real. Presence matters more than size. Not just a little more, way more, because presence is what truly shapes the experience, deepens the connection, and creates lasting satisfaction. When a person is present, fully in the moment, engaged with their partner, not just physically but emotionally, that's where the real magic of intimacy happens. Presence means you're not distracted. You're not focused on whether you're performing well. You're not wondering whether you measure up to someone else's ex or some unrealistic standard you picked up from the media. You're here, you're tuned in, you're connected, and most importantly, you're focused on her, not on proving anything about yourself. Here's the thing, sex is not a technical task to be mastered like building a bookshelf. It's not about angles or lengths or exact timing. It's a shared experience that thrives on connection, safety, vulnerability, and energy. That's why presence is so critical. When you're truly present with someone, you're reading their cues, you're listening, not just with your ears, but with your whole body. You notice her breathing, the shifts in her body language, the way her voice changes. You're attuned to her, not trying to rush toward a finish line or check a box. This kind of attentiveness builds something size never can, trust. And when a woman feels safe, emotionally seen, and not judged, she relaxes. She opens up, she becomes more responsive, more adventurous, more connected. Her body literally becomes more receptive. That's not a metaphor, that's biology. The more aroused and emotionally safe she feels, the more her body adapts to accommodate and enjoy what's happening. It has nothing to do with how long or big you are. It has everything to do with how emotionally present and grounded you are. So many people get stuck in performance mode. They're so worried about doing it right, about lasting long enough, being big enough, making her climax, that they completely disconnect from the actual moment. It becomes a routine instead of an experience, and women can feel that. They can feel when someone's going through the motions. They can tell when someone is just trying to prove something, or when they're lost in their own head and not actually with them. It's like dancing with someone who's thinking about their own feet the whole time. You lose the rhythm. You lose the chemistry, but when you're fully present, your energy shifts, you touch differently, you respond naturally, you become more confident, not because you're pretending, but because you're not trying to be anyone else. You're just there, real, grounded, connected, and that presence, that is felt more deeply than any physical trait. It's what creates emotional closeness, and it's what takes intimacy from routine to unforgettable. Presence also brings patience, and patience is underrated in the bedroom. When you're present, you're not rushing. You're not anxious to prove yourself. You're not checking your watch or trying to mimic some fantasy scenario. You're tuned in to what's actually happening. That might mean slowing down. That might mean pausing to ask what she likes or noticing that she's not quite there yet. It might mean switching things up based on how she's reacting. When you're in your body and present in the moment, you're responsive, not reactive. That responsiveness is far more satisfying than any size could ever be. And let's be honest, no one wants to feel like a performance object. Women don't want someone who treats them like a goal to conquer. They want someone who sees them, who's interested in them, who's connected enough to understand that sex is a mutual experience, not a one-sided pursuit of ego. Being present says, I'm here with you. I'm not thinking about me. I'm focused on us. That creates trust. That creates real desire. That creates an environment where both people can fully show up. When you remove the pressure to perform and just focus on being present, everything changes. Touch becomes more intentional, words become more meaningful, eye contact becomes electric. Suddenly, the focus shifts away from questions like, am I enough, or is this working, and lands right where it belongs. How does this feel? What are we creating together right now? Emotional connection drives physical satisfaction in a way that most people underestimate. We've been conditioned to believe that sexual pleasure is mostly physical, a kind of mechanical process made up of actions and reactions, moves and techniques. But the truth is that the most powerful, memorable, and fulfilling physical experiences stem directly from the emotional energy exchanged between two people. When a woman feels emotionally connected to her partner, her body responds on an entirely different level. That connection, that sense of being understood, safe, and appreciated, creates the conditions for deeper arousal, more intense pleasure, and far greater intimacy. Emotional connection isn't about being in love necessarily, although that can deepen things even further. It's about attunement, mutual respect, and emotional safety. It's about showing up with honesty, care, and real presence. When someone feels emotionally connected, they stop holding tension in their body. They stop worrying about how they look, what they're supposed to do, or whether they're performing well enough. Emotional connection lets people drop their guard, and when that guard drops, real desire rises. That kind of openness, emotional and physical, is what creates deeply satisfying sexual experiences. This is especially true for women, whose arousal is often tied closely to how emotionally safe and seen they feel. It's not just about physical stimulation. It's about trust, about being known, about letting go. When there's no emotional connection, a woman might go through the motions, but her body won't fully respond. Her mind may wander. She may feel disconnected, numb, or even uncomfortable, regardless of what her partner is doing physically. But with emotional connection, the same exact actions can land completely differently. Touch becomes electric. Eye contact carries depth. Breath syncs up naturally. That's the power of emotional energy. It transforms the physical experience into something layered and powerful. A strong emotional connection also builds confidence between partners. When someone feels emotionally secure, they're more likely to speak up about what they want, what feels good, and what they don't like. They're less afraid of judgment, and that honesty leads to better physical outcomes. Communication becomes easier and more intuitive. There's less guesswork and more mutual understanding. You stop having sex from a script, and instead create an experience that's tailored to each other in real time. That kind of emotional openness lays the groundwork for physical satisfaction every single time. Emotional connection also creates a rhythm between two people. It builds anticipation, trust, and responsiveness. Think about how it feels to laugh with someone you're emotionally close to. It's easier, more freeing, more joyful. Now think about how it feels to touch someone when that emotional chemistry is strong. The body responds instinctively, the barriers fall away, everything flows better. Sexual satisfaction isn't about perfect moves or lasting a specific amount of time. It's about being attuned, and attunement starts with emotional connection. There's a myth that emotions get in the way of sex, or that being too emotional somehow ruins the experience. That's just not true. Emotion enhances sex. It makes it richer, more textured, more intense. It adds meaning and depth. It transforms a physical act into something deeply intimate. Even in casual encounters, some form of emotional respect and presence can radically improve the experience. It's not about being overly romantic or dramatic. It's about being real, honest, and human. When people feel emotionally validated and respected, their nervous system relaxes. And a relaxed nervous system is a more responsive, more sensitive, and more open one. Many people try to separate the emotional from the physical, especially when they feel pressure to perform or fear intimacy. But that separation often leads to empty, disconnected experiences. It might check all the physical boxes on the surface, but it won't leave either person truly fulfilled. It's the emotional energy, the unspoken communication, the vulnerability, the sense of being fully accepted, that creates lasting impact. Without that, even the most physically successful experience can feel hollow afterward. With it, even the simplest gestures become unforgettable. Emotional connection also builds over time. It's not always instant. It grows through honesty, through sharing experiences, through being present and listening. The more emotionally connected two people become, the more space there is for exploration, for trust, for playfulness. And those are the exact ingredients that lead to better sex. Not because of some trick or technique, but because the emotional foundation makes everything feel more natural, more exciting, more meaningful. The body responds to emotion. The heart affects the senses. When both are aligned, physical satisfaction is no longer just about the body. It becomes something much more profound. Communication is the real sexual superpower, and yet it's the one thing most people avoid when it comes to intimacy. We live in a culture that teaches us to be ashamed of talking about sex openly. We're supposed to somehow just know what to do to guess what our partner likes, to avoid asking questions for fear of looking inexperienced or ruining the mood. But the truth is, none of that helps anyone. What actually creates unforgettable experiences, what builds deep sexual chemistry, what makes someone feel truly seen and satisfied, is open, honest, clear communication. Without it, even the most physically compatible people can end up frustrated or disconnected. With it, even two people with completely different experiences or preferences can create something amazing together. People assume that talking about sex has to be awkward or clinical, but that's only true if you let it be. Communication doesn't have to be heavy or formal. It can be playful, curious, flirty, or warm. It can be as simple as asking, "Do you like this?" or "How does that feel?" It can be about sharing a fantasy, giving a compliment, expressing a desire. The point is, you're showing up with the courage to say something instead of pretending you know everything or staying silent while your partner guesses at what you're feeling. That's not vulnerability. That's avoidance, and avoidance kills connection. The thing about communication is that it creates safety, and safety is the foundation for pleasure. When someone knows they can speak up without being judged, corrected, or laughed at, they're far more likely to be open. They'll tell you what they like. They'll tell you what they want more of. They'll be honest about what's not working. That feedback loop makes everything better because it lets both partners adjust in real time. It takes the guesswork out. It turns sex from a performance into a conversation, one that's unfolding through words, touch, breath, and energy. So many people operate from assumptions in the bedroom. They think, well, it worked with my last partner, or this is what people say is good. So they do the same things without asking, but no two people are the same. What one person loves, another might not even enjoy. That's why communication is essential. It's the bridge between intention and experience. It's how you move from doing what you think is right to doing what actually feels good for the person you're with. You can't read minds, and you don't have to. You just have to ask. You just have to listen. You just have to care enough to be present. There's also the idea that talking ruins the mood, but the opposite is true. Silence can create confusion, distance, and self-doubt. Communication builds confidence. When you tell your partner what you like, or when they tell you what's turning them on, it creates a feedback loop of trust and affirmation. You both feel more in sync. You both feel more seen. That amplifies desire. That deepens intimacy, and the more you communicate, the more natural it becomes. It stops feeling like a risk and starts feeling like connection. Communication also isn't limited to what happens during sex. It starts long before that, in how you talk about boundaries, expectations, preferences, even insecurities. Creating space for those conversations builds trust. It shows that you respect each other not just as sexual beings, but as whole people. And when someone feels respected and heard, they're more likely to open up. That emotional openness often leads to more physical openness. You build chemistry by building understanding. It's also important to recognize that communication isn't just verbal. It's in your tone, your eye contact, your responsiveness, your presence. It's in the way you touch, the way you pause to check in, the way you adjust without being asked because you're paying attention. All of that is part of the dialogue, and when you treat sex as a collaborative exchange instead of a one-sided effort, both people benefit, both people feel empowered, both people feel like they matter. Some of the most powerful moments in intimacy come not from what you do physically, but from what's exchanged emotionally through words, saying something real like "I love when you do that," or "You make me feel amazing right now." can create a kind of electricity that no amount of technique alone can deliver. It's the emotional impact that elevates the physical experience. Words matter, honesty matters. Even the willingness to admit nervousness or vulnerability can be incredibly bonding. When two people are honest with each other, when they trust each other enough to communicate clearly, they open the door to experiences that are deeper, richer, and far more satisfying than anything that could happen in silence or assumption.